Nexus Station floated in the black emptiness of space like a city made of metal and light. It was massive. Thousands of beings from dozens of worlds lived and worked inside its curved walls. Ships came and went every hour, bringing traders, diplomats, and travelers from across the galaxy. The station never slept. There was always noise, always movement, always life. Lucy stood at a viewing window on the station's middle level, pressing her small hands against the cold glass. She was 12 years old, with brown hair that she kept in a messy ponytail and curious green eyes that wanted to see everything. Behind her, aliens of all shapes walked past. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some had too many arms or too few eyes. Lucy had stopped being scared of them weeks ago. Now she just found them interesting. Her father was a diplomat from Earth. He had brought her to Nexus Station because he had no choice. Her mother had died 2 years ago, and there was no one else to care for her while he worked. So Lucy traveled with him, moving from station to station, learning about the galaxy in ways that no classroom could teach. Humans were still new to the galactic community. They had only made first contact 15 years ago, and most alien species still knew very little about them. To the older races, humans seemed soft and weak. They had no claws, no armor, no venom. They could not see in the dark or hear sounds from far away. Many aliens looked at humans and saw nothing special at all. Lucy did not care what aliens thought about humans. She was too busy enjoying her life on the station. She liked watching the ships dock. She liked trying strange foods from distant worlds. She liked making up stories about the travelers she saw. And she liked Cole. Cole Vance was her guardian. Her father had hired him before they left Earth, and Cole had been with them ever since. He was a quiet man in his early 30s, with short brown hair and calm gray eyes. He was not tall or muscular. He did not look like the soldiers Lucy had seen in movies. He looked ordinary, like someone who might work in an office or a library. But Lucy felt safe with him. She could not explain why. There was just something about the way he watched the world around them. His eyes moved slowly, taking in everything, missing nothing. When he smiled at her, it was warm and real. When he spoke, his voice was soft and patient. Cole never talked about his past. When Lucy asked him what he did before becoming her guardian, he would just shrug and say he had a boring government job. She did not believe him, but she did not push. Everyone had secrets. Right now, Cole stood a few steps behind her, his hands in his pockets, watching the crowd without seeming to watch at all. A group of tall reptilian aliens walked past, their scales shimmering green and gold. They glanced at Cole and quickly looked away. To them, he was nothing, just another weak human with no weapons and no threat. Lucy turned away from the window and smiled at Cole. "Can we get some of those sweet rolls from the market, the purple ones with the cream inside?" Cole nodded. "Sure, but we eat them on the way back. Your father wants you home before the night cycle." They walked together through the busy corridors of Nexus Station. Lucy skipped ahead a little, looking at everything, while Cole followed at an easy pace. He never rushed. He never raised his voice. He moved through the crowd like water flowing around stones, always calm, always steady. The market was a loud and colorful place. Hundreds of stalls sold everything from alien fruits to handmade jewelry to strange devices that Lucy could not understand. She stopped at a stall run by a small furry creature with 6 arms and bought 2 purple sweet rolls with the credits her father had given her. She handed one to Cole. "Try it, they're really good." Cole took a bite and chewed slowly. "Not bad, a little too sweet for me, though." Lucy laughed. "You don't like anything sweet, you're weird." They sat on a bench near a fountain that sprayed glowing blue water into the air. Lucy ate her sweet roll and watched the beings around them. A family of bird-like aliens walked past, their feathers bright red and orange. A massive creature with 4 legs and a trunk carried crates on its back. 2 small children chased each other around the fountain, making clicking sounds that might have been laughter. Cole finished his sweet roll and wiped his hands on a cloth. His eyes moved across the crowd, stopping for just a moment on certain faces, then moving on. Lucy did not notice. She was too busy watching the children play. But Cole had noticed something. Two figures standing near a spice stall, pretending to examine the products. They were tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. They wore plain clothes that did not fit them quite right, and they had been watching Lucy for the past 5 minutes. Cole did not react. He did not turn his head or change his expression. He simply filed the information away in his mind, the way he had done thousands of times before. He noted their height, their build, the way they stood, the small bulge under one of their jackets that might have been a weapon. He said nothing to Lucy. There was no reason to scare her. Not yet. Maybe they were just curious about humans. Maybe they were harmless. But Cole would watch them carefully and he would remember their faces. When Lucy finished her sweet roll, they stood and walked back toward the human quarters. Cole stayed close to her, positioning himself between Lucy and the crowd without making it obvious. His hands remained relaxed at his sides, but his fingers knew exactly where to reach if he needed them to. That night, Lucy went to sleep in her small room, dreaming about the alien children she had seen at the fountain. Her father was still working in his office, reading reports and preparing for meetings. Cole sat in the dark of the living area, his back against the wall, his eyes on the door. He did not sleep much. He never had. His mind was too busy running through scenarios, calculating angles, measuring distances. The two figures from the market were still in his thoughts. He had seen the way they looked at Lucy. It was not curiosity. It was something else, something hungry. Cole had learned long ago to trust his instincts. They had kept him alive through things that most people could not imagine, and right now, his instincts were telling him that something was wrong. He would be ready. Whatever came through that door, whatever threatened the girl sleeping peacefully in the next room, would have to go through him first. And Cole Vance was not the kind of man who let things go through him. Deep in the lower levels of Nexus Station, where the lights flickered and the air smelled of rust and oil, there was a room that did not exist on any official map. The walls were thick enough to block all signals. The door was hidden behind a broken cargo container. Only a few beings in the entire station knew it was there. Inside this room, 5 figures sat around a metal table. They were members of the Collective, a criminal organization that operated across dozens of star systems. They dealt in many things: weapons, drugs, information. But their most profitable business was the trafficking of rare species. The leader of this group was a reptilian creature named. He had dark green scales, yellow eyes with vertical pupils, and a long scar running down the left side of his face. Had been doing this work for over 20 years. He had captured and sold hundreds of beings from dozens of worlds. He was patient, careful, and completely without mercy. The 4 others at the table were his best operatives. 2 were from the same species as, with similar scales but younger faces. One was a pale blue humanoid with large dark eyes, the same species as the Watchers Cole had noticed at the market. The last was a massive creature covered in thick gray fur, with arms as big as tree trunks and small black eyes that held no emotion. On the table in front of them was a holographic image of Lucy. She was smiling in the picture, holding one of the purple sweet rolls she loved so much. "The human child," said, his voice low and rough. "Young, healthy, female. Our buyers on the outer rim will pay 500,000 credits for her." One of the younger reptilians whistled. "That much for a human." "Humans are rare in this sector," explained. "The outer rim collectors want exotic species, and humans are very exotic right now, especially young ones." He tapped the table, and the image changed to show Lucy's father. The father is a diplomat. He has meetings all day and works late into the night. The girl spends most of her time alone or with her guardian. The image changed again, this time showing Cole. It was a still frame captured from station security footage. He was sitting on a bench, eating a sweet roll, looking completely relaxed. "This is the Guardian," continued. "A human male, mid-30s, no weapons, no combat training that we can find in his records. He appears to be nothing more than a babysitter." The pale blue operative, whose name was Kel, leaned forward. "I watched them for 3 days. He moves slowly. He smiles all the time. He buys the girl pastries and plays games with her. He is not a soldier." The massive furry creature called made a rumbling sound in his chest. "Humans are weak, soft skin, no claws, no natural weapons. This one will not be a problem." Nodded. "I agree, but we will be careful anyway. We take no chances." He pulled up a map of the station on the holographic display. "The human quarters are here on level 12. There is one main corridor leading to their rooms and 2 emergency exits. We will block the exits and approach from the main corridor." He pointed to each of his operatives in turn. "Kel and will go first, using neural disruptors to disable the Guardian. We'll carry the girl, and I will cover the rear and handle any station security we might encounter. We move fast and quiet, in and out in less than 10 minutes. The plan was simple. They had done this kind of thing many times before. Capture a target, get to their hidden ship in the lower docks, and disappear into hyperspace before anyone knew what had happened. "When?" asked his yellow eyes eager. "Tomorrow night during the station's sleep cycle. The corridors will be empty. The security patrols will be at their thinnest," smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "The girl will be hours before anyone knows she is gone." The operatives nodded. They began checking their equipment, making sure their weapons were charged and their gear was ready. They moved with the confidence of experienced hunters who had never failed to catch their prey. None of them were worried about the human guardian. They had seen him. He was nothing. A soft, quiet man who spent his days smiling and eating pastries. Humans sent poets to guard their young, they joked among themselves. It was almost too easy. In another part of the station, Cole Vance was teaching Lucy a card game from Earth. They sat at a small table in the living area of their quarters, with cards spread out between them. "No, you have to match the numbers, not the colors," Cole said patiently. Lucy frowned at her cards. "This game is confusing. Can't we play something easier?" "You'll get it, just takes practice." Cole's voice was calm, his expression relaxed, but his mind was elsewhere. Over the past 2 days, he had noticed more watchers. The pale blue humanoid from the market had appeared again near the food court. Another figure, a large furry creature, had been standing in the corridor outside their quarters for 20 minutes yesterday before walking away. Cole had dealt with situations like this before. He knew the signs. Someone was planning something. They were observing, mapping routines, looking for weaknesses. He had already identified 17 items in their quarters that could be used as weapons. The metal edge of the table, a heavy lamp in the corner, the cord from the window blinds. Even the cards in his hands had edges sharp enough to cut if used correctly. He had also memorized every exit from their quarters, every maintenance hatch in the nearby corridors, and the patrol schedule of station security. He knew how long it would take for help to arrive if he triggered an alarm. He knew it would probably be too long. Lucy won the card game mostly because Cole let her win. She laughed and clapped her hands, and Cole smiled at her joy. She was a good kid, smart and curious and full of life. She deserved to be safe. Cole would make sure she stayed that way. That night after Lucy went to bed, Cole sat in his usual spot in the dark living area. He did not close his eyes. He ran through scenarios in his head, planning for every possibility. 5 attackers, maybe 6. Neural disruptors, probably. They would want to take her alive, which meant they would not use lethal weapons. That was good. It meant they would have to get close. And when they got close, Cole would be waiting. He had spent 15 years training for moments like this. 15 years learning how to move without sound, how to strike without warning, how to end a threat before it even knew it was in danger. The galaxy did not know what humans were capable of when they were pushed. Most humans themselves did not know. But Cole knew. He sat in the dark, still and patient, like a predator waiting for prey to come to him. His breathing was slow and even. His heart beat steady and calm. Somewhere in the lower levels, sent a message to his buyers. The human girl will be in our possession within 10 hours. He did not send a backup team. He saw no need. It was a mistake he would not live to regret. The station's lights dimmed to signal the start of the night cycle. The busy corridors grew quiet as shops closed and beings returned to their quarters. The constant hum of activity faded to a soft whisper. Nexus Station was going to sleep. In the human quarters on level 12, Lucy lay in her bed, dreaming of the oceans of Earth that Cole had described to her. Waves crashing against sandy beaches, dolphins jumping through sparkling water, the smell of salt in the air. She had been born on a space station and had never seen Earth, but Cole's stories made her feel like she had been there. In the next room, her father was finally asleep after another long day of meetings. His work was important, he always said. Humans needed friends in the galaxy, and making friends took time and patience. Cole was not asleep. He sat in his usual spot in the dark living area, his back against the wall, his eyes adjusted to the shadows. He had slept for exactly 2 hours earlier in the day, enough to keep his mind sharp. That was all he needed. In one hand, he held a small metal stylus. It was meant for writing on, but its point was sharp and strong. In his other hand was nothing. Cole did not need weapons to be dangerous. His hands were enough. The minutes passed slowly. Cole's breathing stayed calm and steady. He listened to every sound in the corridor outside. The distant hum of the station systems. The occasional footsteps of a late-night traveler walking past. The soft click of automatic doors opening and closing somewhere far away. Then he heard something else. Footsteps that were trying too hard to be quiet. The faint rustle of clothing designed to muffle sound. The barely audible click of equipment being adjusted. They were here. Cole moved without making a sound. He rose from his spot and glided across the room like a ghost. He positioned himself in a shadow near the door, pressing his body against the wall where the darkness was deepest. His heart rate did not change. His breathing remained slow and even. He had done this before, many times. The first operative came around the corner outside the human quarters. It was Kel, the pale blue humanoid holding a neural disruptor in both hands. His large, dark eyes scanned the corridor, looking for any sign of movement. He saw nothing. The doors to the human quarters were closed. The corridor was empty. He signaled to the others behind him, all clear. Kel took 3 more steps toward the door. He was focused on the electronic lock, already reaching for the hacking device on his belt. He never saw the shadow move beside him. Cole struck without warning. One hand clamped over Kel's mouth, cutting off any sound. The other drove the metal stylus into the soft spot just below the alien's ear. Kel's eyes went wide with shock. His body stiffened, then went limp. Cole caught him before he could fall and lowered him silently to the ground. The whole thing took less than 3 seconds. Cole pulled the neural disruptor from Kel's dead hands and examined it quickly. Standard model. Point and shoot. He set it aside and moved back into the shadows. He did not need alien weapons. They were loud and clumsy compared to what he could do with his bare hands. Behind him, the door to Lucy's room remained closed. She was still sleeping, unaware of what was happening just a few meters away. Cole intended to keep it that way. The second operative appeared 30 seconds later. Another reptilian came looking for Kel when he did not respond to signals. He found his partner lying on the floor, eyes open and empty, a small dark wound behind his ear. Opened his mouth to shout a warning. The sound never came out. Cole was already on him. He came from above, dropping from a maintenance duct in the ceiling that he had opened hours ago. His arms wrapped around the reptilian's neck, finding the exact spot where pressure would cut off blood flow to the brain. Struggled, his clawed hands scratching at Cole's arms, but it was no use. Cole's grip was like iron. Within seconds, the light faded from his yellow eyes. Cole let the body drop and melted back into the shadows. 2 down, 3 to go. His arms were scratched and bleeding from his claws, but Cole ignored the pain. Pain was just information. It told him he was alive. It did not slow him down or change his focus. He could hear the other 3 operatives moving in the corridor now. They had heard something. Maybe the sound of his body hitting the floor. Maybe just the silence where there should have been signals. They were getting nervous. Good, nervous enemies made mistakes. Cole moved through the corridors like he was part of the darkness itself. He knew every shadow, every corner, every hiding spot. He had spent days mapping this section of the station, preparing for a moment like this. The operatives thought they were the hunters. They were wrong. The third operative was a young reptilian who had never seen real combat. He was supposed to stay back and guard the escape route, but when Kel stopped responding, ordered him forward to investigate. Walked slowly, his weapon raised, his scales damp with nervous sweat. The corridor was too quiet. Something was wrong. He could feel it in his bones. He passed a dark alcove and paused. Was something moving in there? He squinted into the darkness, trying to see. Cole was not in the alcove. He was behind, having circled around through a parallel corridor. His arm went around the young reptilian's throat before even knew he was there. There was a quick, sharp twist, a soft crack, and then silence. Cole lowered the body into the alcove and kept moving. 3 down, 2 to go. Somewhere in the corridor ahead was beginning to understand that something had gone very wrong. 3 of his operatives were gone. No signals, no warnings, just silence. Hissed to the massive furry creature beside him. Something is killing my men. Small black eyes darted around the corridor. What could do this? I don't know, but we need to leave, now. They began to back away, abandoning the mission. But it was too late. Cole had already circled behind them, moving through maintenance tunnels and side corridors. He was between them and their escape route. And did not know it yet, but they were not going anywhere. Back in the human quarters, Lucy turned over in her sleep and hugged her pillow. She dreamed of dolphins and blue water and the warmth of a sun she had never felt. Outside her door, in the dim corridors of Nexus Station, her guardian was finishing what he had started. Cole Vance did not feel anger or hatred. He did not feel the thrill of violence or the rush of adrenaline. He felt nothing but cold, clear focus. These beings had come to take Lucy. They had planned to steal her and sell her to people who would hurt her. That was enough. Cole stepped out of the shadows, ready for the final 2. His gray eyes were calm. His breathing was steady. His hands were open and ready. The hunt was almost over. Had survived 20 years in the criminal underworld by trusting his instincts. Right now, every instinct was screaming at him to run. 3 of his best operatives were gone, vanished into the silence of the station's night cycle. There had been no sounds of fighting, no cries for help, no weapons fire, just nothing. Something was out there. Something that moved without sound and killed without warning. Had heard stories about such things before. Creatures that lived in the dark spaces between stars, hunting anything that wandered too close. But those were just stories, weren't they? Whispered, his yellow eyes darting around the dim corridor. We move, now back to the ship. Nodded, his massive furry body tense with fear. The creature was almost 3 meters tall and strong enough to crush metal with his bare hands. But strength meant nothing against an enemy you could not see. They moved quickly through the corridor, heading toward the maintenance tunnels that would take them back to their hidden ship. Kept his weapon raised, ready to fire at anything that moved. Stayed close behind him, his heavy breathing the only sound in the silence. They found his body first. The young reptilian was lying in an alcove, his head twisted at an impossible angle. His eyes were still open, frozen in surprise. He had not even had time to be afraid. Felt his blood turn cold. "Who could do this?" he whispered. "What could do this?" Made a low growling sound. "The human, it must be the human." Impossible shook his head. "Humans are weak, soft. This one had no weapons, no training." "Then what?" interrupted, his voice rising with panic. "Ghosts, demons, 3 of us are dead, something is killing us." Opened his mouth to respond, but the words died in his throat. In the distance, at the far end of the corridor, a figure stepped out of the shadows. It was a man, a human man, medium height, lean build, plain clothes. He stood there, arms at his sides, completely relaxed. It was the babysitter, the poet, the soft one who bought pastries for the girl. His gray eyes reflected the dim light of the corridor like mirrors. His face showed no emotion. No anger, no fear, no excitement, just calm, absolute focus. "That's him," snarled. "That's the human." Raised his weapon. "Kill him." Charged forward with a roar that shook the walls. He was fast for his size, covering the distance in seconds. His massive arms reached out to crush the human, to break his bones and tear him apart. Cole did not move. He stood perfectly still, watching the charging creature with eyes that calculated distance, speed, and timing with cold precision. At the last possible moment, when claws were about to close around him, Cole stepped to the side. It was a small movement, just a few inches, but it was enough. Momentum carried him past Cole, his claws closing on empty air. Before the creature could turn, Cole was on his back. His arm wrapped around his thick neck, finding the pressure points that his training had taught him. Thrashed and roared, smashing his body against the walls, trying to crush the human against the metal. Cole held on. His grip did not weaken, his focus did not break. His movements became slower. His roars became gasps. The oxygen was not reaching his brain. His massive body swayed, stumbled, and finally crashed to the floor like a falling tree. Cole released his grip and stepped back. Eyes were closed. His chest was still moving, but he would not wake up for hours. The whole fight had taken less than 30 seconds. Watched in horror. He had seen tear through walls. He had seen the creature lift cargo containers over his head. And this human, this small, soft, weaponless human, had put him down like he was nothing. Raised his neural disruptor and fired. The shot was wild, missing Cole by several meters. He fired again and again, emptying the charge pack into the corridor, hitting nothing but walls and ceiling. When the weapon clicked empty, stared at it in disbelief. Then he looked up and saw that Cole had not moved. The human was still standing in the same spot, watching him with those cold gray eyes. "Who are you?" demanded, his voice cracking with fear. "What are you?" Cole did not answer. He walked forward slowly and steadily, like a predator approaching wounded prey. There was no hurry in his movements, no urgency. He knew that had nowhere to go. Threw the empty weapon at Cole and turned to run. He made it 3 steps before Cole was on him. A hand grabbed his shoulder and spun him around. Another hand clamped onto his throat, lifting him off the ground as if he weighed nothing. His clawed feet kicked uselessly in the air. His hand scratched at Cole's arm, drawing blood, but the human's grip did not loosen. Cole's face was inches from his own. Those gray eyes stared into his yellow ones without blinking. "She is a child," Cole said. His voice was soft, almost gentle, but there was something beneath it, something cold and hard and absolutely unforgiving. Tried to speak, tried to beg, tried to offer money, information, anything, but no sound came out. Cole's grip was too tight. "You do not touch children," Cole continued. "Not hers, not any, never again." Cole's free hand moved in a blur. There was a sharp crack, and then's body went limp. Cole let the body drop to the floor. He stood there for a moment, looking down at the creature who had planned to steal Lucy and sell her like cargo. He felt no satisfaction, no triumph. He had done what needed to be done. That was all. His arms were bleeding from the scratches. His muscles ached from the fight but the pain was distant, unimportant. There would be time to deal with it later. Cole walked back through the corridor, stepping over bodies without looking at them. He checked on, making sure the creature was still unconscious, then continued to the maintenance alcove where he had hidden Kel's body. He dragged it out into the corridor and laid it in a row with the others. 5 bodies, 5 threats eliminated, 1 human girl safe and sound, still dreaming in her bed. Cole returned to the human quarters and entered quietly. He washed the blood from his arms in the small kitchen sink, moving slowly to avoid making noise. The scratches were not deep. They would heal in a few days. He found a clean shirt and changed, putting the torn and bloody one into a bag that he would dispose of later. Then he sat down in his usual spot in the living area, his back against the wall, his eyes on the door. The station's night cycle was almost over. Soon the lights would brighten and the corridors would fill with life again. Station security would find the bodies. There would be questions. Cole would answer them calmly and honestly. He would explain what had happened. He would describe how he had identified a threat and eliminated it. He would use the boring, clinical language that officials like to hear. And then he would go back to being the quiet guardian who played card games and bought pastries. The babysitter, the poet, the soft one. That was what the galaxy would see. That was all they needed to know. In the next room, Lucy stirred in her sleep and smiled at something in her dreams. She did not know that death had come for her tonight. She did not know that one quiet man had stood between her and the darkness. She only knew that she felt safe. And that was enough. The station's lights brightened slowly, signaling the start of a new day cycle. Corridors that had been empty and silent began to fill with life. Shops opened. Vendors prepared their stalls. Travelers moved toward the docking bays to catch their ships. Nexus Station woke up like it did every day, busy and loud and full of purpose. In the corridor outside the human quarters on level 12, a security patrol made their usual rounds. The officer in charge was a young named, with shiny black armor and 4 thin arms. He was new to the job and still eager to prove himself. Saw the bodies first. He stopped so suddenly that his partner bumped into him from behind. "What is it?" his partner asked. Then she saw it too. 5 bodies laid out in a neat row against the wall. 3 reptilians, 1 pale blue humanoid, and 1 massive furry creature. Their eyes were closed. Their limbs were arranged carefully, almost respectfully. But there was no doubt they were dead. The smell alone told that story. Activated his communicator with shaking hands. "Control, this is Patrol 7. We have a situation on level 12. Multiple casualties outside the human quarters. We need security chief down here immediately." Within 20 minutes, the corridor was filled with station security. Yellow tape blocked off the area. Officers scanned the scene with devices that could detect everything from residual energy to biological matter. Investigators took images and made notes. Chief arrived last. He was a towering, almost 3 meters tall, with armor that had turned gray with age. His compound eyes had seen many things during his long career. Wars, murders, accidents, tragedies of every kind. But he had never seen anything quite like this. 5 experienced operatives, all members of a dangerous criminal syndicate, killed in near-total silence. No witnesses, no alarms, no calls for help, just bodies in the dark. Investigators had already identified the dead. The collective was well known to station security. They were criminals, traffickers, hunters of sentient beings. Good riddance, some officers muttered among themselves, but that did not explain how they had died. There were no energy weapon burns on the bodies, no projectile wounds, no signs of any advanced weapons at all. The causes of death were simple and brutal: crushed throats, broken necks, precise strikes to vital points. These beings had been killed by hand. looked at the door to the human quarters. A single human family lived there, a diplomat, his daughter, and her guardian. The chief had met the guardian briefly during a routine security check. A quiet man with gray eyes, polite, unremarkable, ordered his officers to bring the human to him. Cole came out of the quarters a few minutes later looking exactly as he always did, calm, relaxed, patient. He was wearing a plain shirt and simple pants. His hands were clean. His expression was mild. If you did not know what had happened in this corridor, you would never guess that this man had been involved. "Mr. Vance," said, his deep voice echoing in the corridor, "can you explain what happened here?" Cole nodded. 5 individuals attempted to enter the human quarters during the night cycle. They were carrying weapons and wearing equipment designed for kidnapping. I determined they posed an immediate threat to the child in my care. I stopped them. Blinked all 4 of his eyes. "You stopped them?" "Yes." "5 of them?" "Yes." "You are unarmed?" Cole shrugged slightly. "I did not need weapons." Stared at the human for a long moment. He had dealt with many species in his career. He knew how to read body language, how to spot lies, how to detect fear or guilt. This human showed none of those things. He spoke about killing 5 beings the way someone might speak about taking out the garbage. It was a task that needed doing. He had done it. That was all. "The collective will want revenge," said finally. "You have made dangerous enemies." Cole's gray eyes met the chief's compound ones. There was something in those eyes that had not noticed before, something cold and old and very, very patient. "They are welcome to try," Cole said quietly. Felt a chill run through his armored body. He had faced warriors and killers from a dozen worlds. None of them had ever made him feel like this. There was something deeply wrong about how calm this human was, how still, how completely unafraid. The investigation continued for several hours. Cole answered every question truthfully and without emotion. Yes, he had killed all 5. No, he had not used any weapons. No, he did not feel threatened by the collective. Yes, he would do it again if necessary. Lucy's father came out of the quarters looking pale and shaken. He had slept through everything. He had not heard a sound. When he learned what had happened, he sat down heavily on a bench and stared at Cole with wide eyes. "You killed 5 of them," he whispered, "by yourself." Cole nodded. "That is what you hired me for, mister, to protect your daughter." "But your file said you worked in government security, desk work, administrative duties." Cole smiled slightly. "My file says many things." Lucy emerged from her room later that morning, yawning and rubbing her eyes. She saw the security officers in the corridor and looked confused. "What happened?" she asked. "Did something break?" Cole walked over to her and gently guided her back inside. "Nothing important, just some trouble that the security people are handling. How about some breakfast? Can we get those purple sweet rolls again?" "Sure, later when things calm down." Lucy smiled and went to wash her face. She did not see the bodies in the corridor. She did not know that death had walked past her door while she slept. She only knew that Cole was there and everything was fine. Word of what happened spread quickly through Nexus Station. Within days, it had spread beyond the station to other worlds, other systems, other species. The story grew with each telling, but the core remained the same. 5 experienced killers had tried to take a human child. One human, unarmed and alone, had stopped them all. He had not called for help. He had not used weapons. He had simply eliminated the threat and gone back to his normal life as if nothing had happened. The collective received the message loudest of all. Their buyers backed out of the deal. Their partners began to distance themselves. Other criminal organizations started to avoid them. Because if one human could do this, what could an entire species of them do? Humans looked weak. They seemed soft. They smiled and played games and bought pastries for their children. But when you threatened what they loved, when you tried to take what they protected, something else emerged. Something silent, something patient, something that did not stop until the threat was gone. The galaxy began to understand something that Earth had known for a long time. There was a reason that humans had survived and thrived on their dangerous planet. There was a reason they had risen to the top of their food chain. There was a reason they protected their young so fiercely. Humans were kind, they were gentle, they could be friends and partners and allies. But they could also be something else entirely. On Nexus Station, life returned to normal. Lucy continued to explore the corridors and markets with her guardian. She learned new card games and tried new foods and made friends with alien children. She was happy and safe and completely unaware of the legend that was growing around the quiet man who bought her pastries. Cole watched her play and smiled. His gray eyes were warm now, soft with affection for this child who had become his whole world. He would kill for her again if he had to. He would die for her without hesitation. That was what humans did. That was what they had always done. They loved and they protected, and heaven help anyone who threatened what was theirs. The galaxy watched and learned and remembered. You do not touch what a honey badger guards. Not ever. Not if you want to live.